Hello and welcome to Soul Portals, exploring psychospiritual horizons with your hosts Cedric Speyer and Deanna Nagel. Cedric is an author and therapist who developed the interview guidance model and is a pathfinder in the psychospiritual realm. Deanna created the Essential Soul Care model, a model suitable for therapists, coaches, and healers. The monthly episodes of Soul Portals feature guests sharing insights from their personal paths and professional practices. Thank you for tuning in for the Soul Talk with all kinds of trailblazing teachers and guides as Cedric, Deanna, and guests explore new evolutionary landscapes.
I'd like to start with an opening invocation and a closing blessing. And it goes, may the spirit flow freely through this gathering and this conversation, allowing it to be both energizing and edifying. Then we have our special guest, Loz Speyer. He's actually a cousin, a second cousin in Europe, in London. And he's a Qigong teacher. We'll be doing a little demo when we get maybe halfway in. And yeah, also a musician and has a fascinating way of integrating those two vocations. The other thing I like to lead with is an opening quote. This is from Tara Brach, the Buddhist teacher, in a beautiful book called Trusting the Gold. I just opened it randomly, like today, this morning, like an hour ago, and landed on the perfect quote for the theme of the month, which is related to energetic centering. And she says, our bodies live in the present moment, but our minds travel. When body and mind are in the same place at the same time, we discover the creative presence that animates our being. So Loz is one of the specialists in bringing us into the same place at the same time in an embodied way. Right, Loz?
That's a tall order to start on. Yeah, that's what we're aiming at, I guess, isn't it? A lot of the time.
Yeah.
That's where we try to get.
Yeah.
Even if we can get occasionally closer to it, it's a huge benefit. Yeah.
Yes.
Where the mind is in the body, in the center, in the mind. Yeah.
Deanna, feel free to jump in with your.
Yeah, I'm listening and I'm taking it in and liking the dovetail of, well, creativity, music, and energetic practice like Qigong. So my question to start out with is, I think in the intro you say that there's a spiritual overlap for you with the music and the energetic practice, and I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the spirit behind your work.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, before I even heard about Qigong, I read a book when I was about 20 called Zen in the Art of Archery. And later found out that Zen came from Chan Buddhism in China, which very much had roots in Taoist practice and the same roots as Qigong, basically. And at the time, I was getting into, and I'm still into, I was improvised music, jazz and improvised music, and playing trumpet and trying to, and I saw an enormous parallel between what was going on in this book was Zen in the Art of Archery. It was written by a German guy who went in the 1920s, I think, went to Japan and studied the Zen art of archery with a Japanese master in the 1920s, so, and then he was, I saw the parallels between that and trying to play spontaneous music, and the training that goes into the way you train and the way you have to forget your training to actually do it. So it kind of, that was like a key thing for me, that realization that it was really the same thing you were after in both those practices. And then it took another 10 years before I discovered Qigong itself, although I did some Aikido before that and other things that led in that direction. So
And
yeah,
so Qigong is a form of martial arts.
no, it's more like martial arts, a form of Qigong.
Okay.
Qigong
But
is like the foundation of martial arts, and it's a very broad term. Sorry.
There is a discipline to that from what I understand, like a discipline that I've heard that some people even say meditative or spiritual about the process.
Which are you talking about, martial arts or Qigong or both? Or
Qigong.
yeah, definitely. I mean, Qigong, it has different aspects. It's certainly meditative and spiritual, and that's the core of it, really. And then it goes into Chinese medicine, goes into martial arts, goes into artistic practices, and it can be taken in all those directions, and it pulls all those things together. It's like at the root of martial arts. It's the basis of martial arts. And it's also, in certain kinds of meditation practice, like it's very much at the basis of Taoist type meditation, and it draws on Buddhist meditation as well. These things are, I don't know too much about the history, to be honest, but in China, ancient Chinese culture is kind of Taoist and Buddhist, and a complex kind of blend of them, as far as I understand it, that goes back in history a long, long way, And before that, shamanic practices, they're kind of the origins of Qigong. And I've heard it said could be 7,000 years ago. There's references. Well, there was a talk by another Qigong master translated by my Qigong master from Chinese, because he was talking in Chinese. Soon after I started, which is about 30 years ago, this was Dr. Shen speaking, and he said that there are references to Qigong in the I Ching, which predates Chinese writing, that book of divination, which is very, very, very ancient. And he reckoned that some of the, you can see it, I can't remember where it is now, but I did look them up, and yeah.
Yeah, so the interface here, the interface with therapy, let's say, is the whole realm of energetic healing, right? Like working with the energy body.
Yeah.
Is that right? Also, I studied Aikido, so like I have to get the pronunciation right. It's Qigong, not Qigong. Qigong.
Qigong, yeah. Yeah. There's been this standardizing of Chinese words into English, European letters. So they use a Q for some reason for that sound. But yeah, it's sometimes spelled CH.
Right. Yeah. But...
Yeah.
Right. So was there a watershed moment for you on your personal journey when you realized this is it, this is your path?
There've been a few of those, but one of them was kind of as I described, that reading that book actually, and then at the time, that's another story really, but at that time I actually had a lot to sort out, and it was pretty difficult time in my life, beginning of my 20s, and then quite a journey from there to sort of finding Xixing Wang, who was the founder of Hua Gong style Qigong, the founder of the school of Qigong. That was in 10 years later. So I was like 31 or 32, I think. Yeah.
There's different lineages, right? So you're...
Yeah, Qigong is a very broad term, and there are many different schools, and different masters have different lineages of teachers going back in history. And many of them might relate to each other, but things are also different between different schools. Xing and his wife Zhendi founded Hua Gong when they came to England in the mid-80s, I believe it was, or maybe late 80s. And there came a point not long after I started in 1991 when they said they were going to stop teaching exercises they'd been taught and just teach practices they'd discovered in their own practice through their own channeling of the teachings, because it was more immediate, not because it was necessarily better, but it was just more immediate because they had discovered those things. And so, yeah, I saw it evolve. I mean, I've been doing, been studying with Xing and some of the time with Zhendi since then. So seen it over a long span and seen the school go through various changes and done and teaching training that he used to do and all sorts of things. Yeah, it's long.
Yeah, it's really, sorry?
There are many different kind of channels or ways of practicing within Hua Gong. Like it's quite a broad school. There's 2 or 3 meditation practices. There's various moving practices which are more active. There's standing meditation, and they're all kind of, once you get inside the school and just start doing Qigong itself, there's kind of all sorts of different ways of practicing it that maybe have different benefits and different aspects, you know.
Yeah. And what
So, go ahead.
well, I was going to say the interesting aspect is how it applies to therapy, like an adjunct or a complement to talking therapy, since it's all about the movement and the energy.
Well, if you're talking about talking therapy, yeah, I tried some of that first to try and sort myself out after the. I had a big kind of crisis when I was like 20, 21, a bit of a breakdown really, and there was a certain kind of logic to it, and I always knew it was not just like a failure in a sense. It was more like, although it was on the surface, but it was more like a searching thing, and I was kind of pretty lost, but looking for something else, looking for a better state. And I knew that even when I was going through it some of the time, even though it's very difficult. Anyway, after that, I had some talking therapy. There was a load of stuff in my mind. And I was very young, you know, I was early 20s still, only recently out of university. And probably didn't choose a very good therapist for me or for my particular situation, didn't know much about it. And did that for a while and then discovered really that what was going on for me was, even though there was a lot of mental stuff going on, it was really more in the body what I was up against. And I kind of realized that by accident, by actually having a bike accident and had an injury that sort of got aggravated by holding the trumpet, which is my instrument, and then had to go to a massage practitioner. And that started to teach me that there was a lot more going on, you know, from the massage. It was biodynamic massage she did. So I kind of realized from that and from talking with her that perhaps I needed to take that approach more than the talking approach to sort myself out and to get where I needed to be. And then through her, I met Alexander Technique teacher, and that was another revelation. This was all through that period, kind of between early 80s and early 90s. And after my very first Alexander Technique lesson, I had this experience of being in this kind of Zen state, as I would have described it then. That kind of, it reminded me of that book I mentioned, and the state you try where your mind is clear and you're totally in the present and you're in your body and there's no fancy stuff going on. It's just you're living. And I remember being in a park, sort of cycling back from this lesson, just feeling like a realized being kind of thing. It was incredible. But the trouble is, I found with that practice, I didn't get that kind of experience again. You could get to a good state, but you're dependent on the teacher. So I wanted something I could actually do on my own, you know, in between times. And then I went to Aikido, but meanwhile, I'd long ago I then stopped the therapy for a while, although I had some more later. Actually, in answer to your therapy question, because I'm rambling a bit, I did find there was a period in the 90s, I think, where I had some kind of counseling, and I was already doing Qigong, and that was actually very powerful for me, the combination of the two. And there was a lot of change going on for me then as well. I had some kind of quite visceral kind of energy experiences during the talking therapy. There was it was quite powerful. I think it made it more effective for me.
I can certainly see the combo, because
well, a lot of people attest to talking therapy being improved by including some sort of side practice of body work, somatic work. So that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Sure.
Like staying embodied, embodied, and then working with the movement of energy the way you do. It's a real antidote to the very common symptom of dissociation. People who've been abused in the past and dissociate, and bringing them back into their body. It's
Right.
a great method.
Well, I've had that experience. I mean, I can vouch for that.
And in your students, when you work with your students, do you see that same kind of shift in them that you went through?
I even see it in my trumpet students.
Well, that's the crossover.
I see the air clear and the light come into the body and that kind of. It's interesting because I spend the main part of my living for the last, like my bread and butter has been teaching kids in schools, teaching music, and I used to do this thing which involved quite big groups. So, and then there'd be a group of 5 kids with trumpets, and the first thing I would try to do is get them to sit right, because they're sitting like all over the place. So in order to, I had the excuse of a trumpet to make them sit up, because they could hear that it sounded better when they did that. And I'll still have to do it all the time with them. You have to remind them. But once it gets to that point where you just sort of feet on the floor, because they'd be tucking their feet up under the chair or something, or twisting them round. Feet on the floor. After a while, I only had to say that, and they'd suddenly be sitting up, and the light would change around their heads. I could sort of see that. I realized I was doing a kind of practice with the energy field surreptitiously. School would never know, and my boss would never know. And the excuse was to play trumpets, but that's actually what was going on. So they were learning to be how being in their bodies in a good position would sort of actually make them more awake and collected and actually happier. They looked happier, although they might not have admitted it.
Yeah, nice.
So, but that's not Qigong teaching. It's kind of secret Qigong teaching.
Well, it's a real great integration.
But it's the same for me. I can't really stand playing the trumpet unless I've done my Qigong practice. It's a very exacting measure of where you're at, and how centered you are. For me, anyway. Maybe some people just pick it up and it comes out perfect. But this has been my driving motivation for a long time, to just.
That's a good segue. If it's a good time to do the exercise, you're going to give us a little demo of your teaching. Deanna, did you have a question before that?
Yeah, I can't teach you to play the trumpet right now, but.
Right.
Okay. Is now the time for that?
Yeah, Deanna, did you have a question?
Just want to see.
I did have a question. I just was curious, and you just said that before you play the trumpet, you do Qigong. Can you talk just a little bit about how it's integrated into your daily spiritual practice? Like, is it something you do, like some of us meditate at a certain time, or do you do it as needed, or is it scheduled? Is it,
In practice, yeah.
Well, it's flexible according to what I've got to do. Sometimes I do something quite quick if actually these days I've been mostly starting with Feldenkrais technique, which is really just dealing with body mechanics, and more than that, of course. But it's not dealing with energy in the chi sense. We haven't actually talked much about the chi practice, but anyway, we'll come to that when we do so. So I tend to do that first to sort of get the mechanics working, and then do some chi practice, moving practice, qigong, starting with the kind of more, usually, not necessarily, but very kind of methodically, because there are different levels within the qigong practice. There's the jing and the qi and the shen, which are the three treasures, as they're called in the tradition, where jing is the closest to the physical, and qi is more like air and warmth. It's more static, but it's everywhere. And then shen is spirit and light, and it's a finer level. And each one is a finer level than the next. So I tend to work through that kind of framework and end up with a meditation, and then I'm ready to do anything that I have to do. You know, I mean, so whether that takes an hour or half a day depends on what I've got going on.
But it is a morning practice, right? Something you do every day?
Yeah, every day. Usually in the morning when I can, or I make up for it later if I can't. You know, sometimes I have to go and like if I'm going off to teach, I'll do the most basic thing and then go off and teach and play trumpet for kids, and then come back. And you know, sometimes that's more involved, and have to come back to. I would have to come back to qigong later to really practice music properly. If I've been busy all day, say that can happen. But I'm not doing as much of that teaching as I used to do, so I've got more flexibility. And you know, if I've got a gig, I will do a lot of qigong practice on the day, if possible, or the day before as well. Depends what's going on, you know.
Someone said a man is a success and a woman too. If we get up in the morning and do what we want to do all day, that's a successful life. You know, what we want, what we're called to do.
Yeah, what we really want to do, not what we think we want to do at the time. Yeah, I mean, you know, if I've got loads of time, I might sort of distract myself quite often and take longer to get to it. So it's good when something happens in the morning. Lately, there's a guy who I think might be here somewhere because I saw his name come up, who's been running some early morning qigong sessions that I've forced myself to attend sometimes, which actually get to the qigong, the qi part of the qigong and the shen part of the qigong too early for me. But it's good to disrupt the routine and get to it early sometimes. You know, it's uncomfortable. So
So can you give the group a little sample, a little experience?
Yeah, I've got a feeling there's some quite experienced people out there, but there's probably some people who've never done it as well. So I will assume that this is a intro session for the people. Let's try something. Yeah. Okay. So we can start sitting, but let's actually, if you're sitting on an upright kind of chair, it's best to sit on the front half of the chair. So the legs are off the chair and the sit bones are taking the weight. And then you let the weight of the legs go down to the feet. So you become upright just by letting the weight sit down. And let's just do this. Just shake the hands to loosen all the fingers. So we're trying to loosen between the fingers, loosen one finger from another. So not shaking all in a block, shaking to loosen between the fingers, loosen the knuckles. And then, just for a moment. And then we're going to just leave the fingers extending into the space and the arms a bit, like loosen up, open up the armpits, empty the armpits, and just sense the effect. Very quick. So it's like fingers extending into the space and the space extending into the hands between the fingers. So it becomes like breathing from between the fingers and the knuckles. And you feel a bit of that. The hands very sensitive, very quick to sense the chi. It feels like breathing from the fingers. And it's also like plugging into the space, like the fingers reaching into the space in front of us. I'm trying to lower the screen down a little. And the hands don't need to be high, it could be lower. So we're not trying to lift anything, we're just extending the fingers into the space. Could be, you know, at the level of the navel or the legs. And open up, allow the arms to open up lengthways, so the arms are also extending into the space and rounded. And maybe you feel something coming, like the fingers extending and something extending back right through, both ways. Like the space between the fingers extending back through the body. So this can quite quickly open up the sense of the chi. It feels like breathing. It feels like the body breathing. Chi is like air, warm air. And it makes space in the body. You feel the space between the fingers extending back to space between parts of the body. All right, and then let's close the fingers again. Just leave that for a moment and shake them down towards the ground. Shake the hands towards the ground. You might want to stand up. Just shake the body, shake the shoulders by bouncing on the heels. And then shake the hands towards the ground. And then shake the hands into the space. And then across the body. And then let's try the same thing again. Just wherever the hands go comfortably. They don't have to be. I'm trying to keep mine in view, but yours don't have to be in view. You can go low. You can go really low. Arms extending and fingers extending. And just imagine you're holding something between the hands, like a ball of energy. It's like the palms of the hands are resting on something that fills that space between the hands. And it also kind of rests against the front of the body and through from the front to the back. So if you're sitting upright or standing, you can feel it go through to the back. A ball of energy filling that space. And this is a very widely practiced Qigong practice, common to many different schools of Qigong and probably goes back many centuries. Just tuning into the energy in that space, in the empty space. And you feel that like the ball goes through the body, from the front to the back, from the inside to the skin at the back. And also it can sit on the ground and come up to the shoulders. It doesn't have to literally sit on the ground, but there's an element of it. If we're standing, normally this is done standing, but I was kind of assuming everyone would be sitting because we're at computers. So we're trying to do it sitting, which is a bit harder actually. But sitting upright with the feet on the ground, feet about shoulders width, and you let the ball kind of sit into the front of the body, so the base of the spine might tuck in slightly around the ball, goes through to the back. The back becomes the curved surface of the ball as well. So the back and the back of the arms and the back of the hands are all extending. And that's the yang side of the body extending, and the yin side is absorbing. And the hands are sitting in that balance between the yin and yang, between the expansion and the containment. So a good practice would be like at least maybe half an hour. There's a traditional thing that Xixing quoted once. Somebody asked him, how long should I practice for? And first he said he couldn't answer that. And then he said, well, there's a traditional saying that says it takes 31 minutes for the chi to work right through the body. And funnily enough, the first audio tape he did is 31 minutes long. So we would normally, this is like a slow cooking process. It takes time to happen. There's some of the other practices are quicker to have an effect. There's some of the Shen level, more light level practice are quicker, but this is a Qi level, so it's about warm air cooking through the body. So then we can go around this ball. Let's go around the ball. Feel the hands resting on the surface. We're gonna wrap it up rather than do 31 minutes, and just feel you can bring all that energy from that big space that's kind of body size to a smaller space below, lower down, the lower part of the body, abdomen area, like below the chest. And just hold it there for a moment, like a little bit wider than the hips. And through to the back. And then smaller to the lower abdomen, below the navel. Just within the width of the hips. Half in, half out of the body. Like a ball of light that's been gathered together. And then the hands can close over the lower abdomen, just below the navel, so the ball gets absorbed into the body. At the lower abdomen, which is like the lower Tantien, energy center. And then from there, can go further in to a small, like a ball of light within the lower abdomen. Then you get to internal alchemy practice, which is more deeply centering, which is like one of the core meditation practices. So we finished that very short taster session. Thank you.
Thank you. That was lovely.
Great. Yeah, great. Great job of condensing.
Did you sense the chi? Did you sense that breathing?
Yeah.
It's not difficult.
Right.
Yeah.
I really liked when you said expansion and containment. I'm used to hearing expansion and contraction, and that was really good. The reframe expansion and containment.
Yeah, it's the balance of the two. Like the yang wants to get bigger, and the containment keeps it contained.
Because that's
need. Yeah.
That's life, right? It's all about expansion and containment.
It's pretty basic. It's yin and yang, right?
Yeah.
And it applies. Yeah, I mean, it unfolds in everything, as you can see from the I Ching.
People can feel free to jump in with any questions or comments in the chat, and we will read them. And yeah.
I'm also aware of, it's the same, like I do Reiki. So when I'm experiencing Reiki with somebody, I don't do hands-on Reiki, but I can feel that energy field.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I was feeling with.
Yeah.
This.
Yeah, we're working with the energy fields at all different levels around, in the body, around the body, close to the body, further away from the body, in a whole group. It's all energy fields. Yeah. And there's a collective one that, in a group of people, even online, can be quite a strong collective energy field. It works really well online. Since COVID time, I've been teaching online, but a couple of my colleagues have been teaching online for quite a long time before that.
So there must be collective healing groups for our troubled world doing that practice. The global one, the global healing that's so badly needed.
Well, that's what we hope. Yeah. That's the hope, isn't it? It should work, shouldn't
it? We'll see.
Maybe.
Well, technology does not stop, the interwebs do not stop the energy from flowing.
No, apparently not.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Jixing used to teach once a week, once a month, a weekend in London. But since COVID time, the weekends have been online, all of them, and he's continued that.
So there's a question in the chat. Rosie says, can we do the light meditation?
How do you mean? What now? Which one?
It would have to be a short one.
Um, no, it's not a Qigong class. This is a podcast. It's a chat session. So, yeah, that would. It also, I think, to go. If you mean the internal alchemy one about that I referred to at the end, I think I wouldn't want to teach that like straight off. I would lead a group through a fairly thorough Qigong session first. If it's people who haven't done Qigong,
maybe you can
got a
just
whole
say
mixture of people here. Some people know that meditation really well, but majority of this group, I don't think, have done much Qigong. So
maybe you can just say what it is, just the headline of what it
I
is.
see. Well, I could talk about it. Yeah, I suppose so. Well, yeah. Then I wonder whether. Yeah, I could. I mean, there's this concept of an energy. How can I describe it? There comes a point. The first thing you have to do is kind of bring the energy into the body at all. Like the energy of the internal organs or of the parts of the body can be quite scattered, apparently. So that even the fundamental Qigong, we're centering the energy in the physical body, like with this outline, that already does something. There's quite a lot of that to do, but then to take it further the idea is to center it into the core of the body, and it's more dealing with the light, the Shen, which is the spirit, the highest level of the energy. Or they're all these levels are constantly interacting, I think. The Jing is the more physical aspect of the energy, but the one transforms into the other. So the Jing transforms into Qi, and the Qi transforms into Shen. And in the course of a practice holding the ball, that can happen a lot. It becomes more and more about light, and sort of the intelligence of the Qi. And then there's a point where you need to kind of center the energy deeper than even the physical body. So you're trying to, and then there's this concept that was perhaps the word is discovered by the Taoist masters way back, that there were energy centers within the core within the central channel of the body. There's one which is the most widely talked about one is the Dantian, which is like below the navel on the inside, just below the navel on the inside at the front. Or it could be in the center. There's different versions of this, and they can be coexisting. And then there's a series of points around, most of them are like up the inside of the spine. There's one there's one at the center of the lower back called Ming Men, like opposite the navel, and then the heart center, behind the heart center on the spine, back of the head, crown of the head, here. There's a series of points around that center line, and the internal alchemy practices traditionally, I think, it's just focusing on those points in a certain kind of way, not focusing hard, but focusing gently.
Is that the same or different than the chakras in the Hindu tradition?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think it's kind of both. It's definitely related, but it's not the same. And then I've heard it talked about, Xing has also spoken about larger energy centers that are more in the middle, because these ones are around the orbit. And I think the larger ones are more perhaps closely related to chakras, but it's a bit of a different system, but it's basically the same. It's the same but different. And I think the one can lead to the other.
Yeah.
Like if you've got 4 points front and back, and they connect across, like there's a meditation I do like this. This is really like a key thing for me. There's a connection across here, there's a connection across here, and there's something happens in the middle when you bring them together. So that's my take on internal alchemy. I teach that sometimes.
Is that what you just described? Sounds like Merkaba, the Merkaba, which is, and it's like a ball of energy, but it's geometrically formed. I don't know enough about it to talk intelligently, but what you just described sounds like it.
Mhm.
Is that like a
It's
mandala?
no, Merkaba, MERC, I believe CABA, Merkaba.
Okay, I'll have to look that up. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Loz, what's the role of the emotions? For example, in traditional, with 5 minutes to go, in traditional meditation with thoughts,
I thought
we're
we had a quarter of an hour to go.
we're taught to. Oh yeah, you're right. To We're taught to witness our thoughts. That's a classic meditation posture. But so emotions in Qigong, how are they viewed or how are
What did
they?
you just say? Was it witnessing emotions?
Well, witnessing applied to thoughts in a classic, mantra meditation or contemplative mode. But I'm
Yeah.
asking about emotions from the point of view of Qigong. How are they viewed or managed?
Um, well, that's probably quite. Yeah, there's a short answer, but it's quite a complex question. I think the idea is not to get carried away by them, but be able to witness them, like you as you just described. And
But
yeah,
are
I'm
they
just
brought
thinking,
into the
just thinking
flow?
how to
Like,
answer.
is it part of the flow of energy? Like, how is the emotions which can be all over the map? Is it part of streamlining the flow of energy?
um, it's connected with the body. I think it's recognizing that it's the body and the mind, and it's um, that there's a traditional thing that connects them with the five elements, which connected with the organs of the body.
Mm.
Um, when I think the first qigong retreat I did was actually with Jixing, master of the school of qigong. He used to run a retreat called the Five Emotions, and the idea was that you channel an emotion like an energy, that you go right into it, and allow whatever happens,
Mm.
noise, sweating, um, shouting, all kinds of things might happen, or very quiet, could be very peaceful. And then you go through that, and you kind of, in the process of the meditation, the idea was to convert it into pure energy that you could absorb
Mhm.
and can be contained, but you allow it expression. So yeah, later he stopped teaching that course, but then I did Five Animals Qigong,
Mm.
which I actually is a sort of speciality that I have in my workshops that I teach, and in my own practice. And again, there are emotions in the classical, like five elements. Um, Chinese medicine is, they have a concept of five elements. It's connected with five emotions, and most emotions are kind of covered by that, or a mixture of them.
Mhm.
And they would be, you could represent and channel an emotion by taking on a particular animal form. The animals are very interesting because they're very physical, but they take it to a very you're dealing with a spirit energy and with the energy of particular aspects of the five elements, like, which can be particular internal organs, and then you can bring that to a meditational state also.
Mm.
It kind of takes you further than doing general qigong for everything. You're kind of going into a very specific energy that actually covers a lot of things. So it's a bit like that with the emotions. But yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah,
That's
no, completely. That completely answers it. I'm wondering whether the emotions line up with the animals like one to one, like,
it's
sad, mad,
it's not
glad.
as simple as that, but they do to some extent, yeah. But each animal has more than one element. Like each
Okay.
animal has a more physical practice level. Like tiger is wood energy, which is expansive, reaching out. Bird is uh, metal, which is relates to the lung and sorrow, and that's the negative emotion, and so on and so on. But each animal also has a symbolic level, which is more symbolic. The tiger is the white tiger, so that is metal, which is lung, and the bird, there's a little red bird that comes into things, or the red beak of the bird, and it's the heart, and the bird form opens up the heart and the lungs. So they're kind of each one of them is quite complex and covers, but they do deal with different areas and different elements and different emotions. Like deer is the water element, and that's connected with the kidney energy, and that's that's connected with the negative emotion of fear. So transforming fear by having strong kidney energy, by strengthening the kidney energy. So
who's the
this is a
animal?
whole approach to emotions through the organs of the body and through the energy of the body. But it's not like
Who's the animal for the one you just described, the fear and water?
that's deer.
Okay.
Deer is the kidney energy primarily, but then there's another level to the deer which is more to do with the wood element symbolically.
Mm-hmm.
So that, they're kind of all quite rich in elements and emotions and.
Can you list the five animals?
The other, I've mentioned
five
3
animals. Yeah.
Yeah, the other ones are the monkey and the bear.
Yes.
Okay. Monkey,
That's
bear, deer.
You've got bird, tiger, deer, bear, and monkey.
Okay.
So what I find fascinating as we're having this conversation, it's my new age geek brain going off, I guess, but it's the overlap of all of these traditions that I hear you talk about a certain tradition and practice, and in my brain, I'm being reminded of other things that are different but similar. And so when you were talking about the animals, the red bird, cardinals are red birds, and they're known for showing up after somebody has passed away, and it's directly related to the heart chakra. So
Right.
I find that all of those commonalities and threads very interesting. Yeah.
With the animals, we're dealing with archetypes, I think.
Yep.
And those come up in all cultures, don't they? And some of them connect across, some of them might be a bit different, but broadly speaking,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
humans sort of know, they recognize it's like a language beyond language, isn't it? That speaks to everybody.
Yeah.
Do you have a totem animal yourself?
No.
Okay.
No, I can shapeshift into different ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, in that practice, it probably does go back to ancient shamanic practices where what you do in the Five Animals, extra to the Qigong form, is you become that animal. You take on that energy,
Yeah.
and it's channeling. You're channeling an animal spirit, which is an archetype. It's not just some random animal. So it's however you see that, and it might change during the course of one practice. It could be a different bird or a different, different kind of tiger. And then that brings a certain energy beyond, and then the movements you do cultivate it as well. So it's quite a powerful practice.
Yeah.
But for the physical, it also can be quite demanding physically. The forms are a little more complex than a lot of the Qigong forms we do. Although there's some other demanding ones too, like the sword, which I've never done.
Usually shamans have a central totem animal aside from the shape-shifting in the others.
Well, maybe I do then.
Which one would it be?
Oh, I'm not sure. I seem to have got myself a reputation of doing a particularly good bear, but I think that's by accident really, because I just happen to have led that on a couple of occasions when there's a big gathering of my Qigong school, and they all think I just do the bear, but I do the others just as much. And
Okay.
but yeah, maybe I don't know. There may be something in that.
Okay, now I can do the doorknob question. In therapy, they talk about, something the client reveals that's really important, like core issue, and as they're leaving, their hand on the door. So it's called the doorknob effect.
What's the question then?
What happens after death?
Wow.
in
Wow.
4 minutes or less.
You're asking me.
in you as a Qigong teacher.
I
if
obviously can't really answer that, can I?
well, in terms
I
of
think,
the energy fields.
we go back to where we came from, which we don't know where it is. We go back to the Tao in
Mhm.
whatever form we can, if any.
Well, when you were describing the energy bodies and the different layers,
Mm.
I was
Well,
thinking, yeah, that's what we carry forward after the body drops away.
yeah, I mean, I don't know what to think, but there's I don't know quite. There's an idea that through practicing, you can center your energy enough to still be centered through that transition, that last
Mhm.
transition. Then, um, you know, I'm pretty sure there's some kind of reincarnation going on. It seems to be a truth that's been arrived at from so many different sources, including our own Jewish tradition. It's definitely there, and it's just a question of how that happens, and who knows. The Tibetans seem to have a great deal of knowledge about it, and actually, that's the Qigong tradition is quite close to the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, I believe,
Okay.
or certainly our teachers' Qigong tradition. A lot of my colleagues in the school are also practitioners of that.
Mm.
But what can I say? I think the internal alchemy practice is supposed to be something. Maybe I believe that's something a Taoist practitioner would like to be doing that when they die.
Mm.
Same way as a Jew would like to be saying the Shema when he dies. So I put the two together.
Mm.
You're supposed to do it every day.
You've got it covered.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Just before we close, I just want to make sure anybody that has a question to come forward now.
Mhm.
I did look up because I got myself curious. I looked up Merkaba, and it says it's a sacred geometric symbol primarily derived from ancient Egyptian and Hebrew traditions, representing a divine chariot or vehicle of light body.
Ah,
So that's what came to me as you were describing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that sounds good. Mm.
Mhm. Well, Loz, you certainly fulfilled the invocation to be edifying and energizing.
Oh, well, good. That's
So
good.
we appreciate that.
We didn't touch much on the how I see this combining with the music, but I've sort of mentioned it at the
Oh, yeah.
um, lately doing some workshops where we practice both. We do some qigong and then take it into improvising music in various ways, and then come back to the qigong and put the two together.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's been quite an interesting experiment just
Mm.
lately, last year.
And where's the best place for people to find you if they're interested in your groups or your
Um,
workshops?
well, you can my name at gmail.com. That's my email. But also, I haven't got a website for qigong of my own, but I've got a Facebook page which is called Centerline Qigong. So you can look it up there.
Mm.
I don't always post everything, I forget, but yeah, you can always contact me through that or through the email. And my teacher's website is called Chinese Heritage. I don't remember whether it's .co.uk or anyway, it's Chinese Heritage and it's Yixing Wang. But spelling that you'd have to spell that. Chinese Heritage Qigong should get you there, I should think.
Yeah. We can put we can put links in the library.
Okay, we can put all those links in then, yeah. Yeah, my one is Centerline Qigong.
Mm. Great.
But
Okay.
essentially, it's Hua Gong school Qigong as taught by Xixing Wang and Zhendi Wang.
Okay. There's a thanks, Loz, and everyone for wonderful discussion, says Dominique.
Thanks, Dominic.
So the closing blessing, may we change some of the madness of this world into meaningful relationships.
Amen.
Amen.
Yes, please.
Amen.
Thank you for having me, Cedric. Great. And
Diana, yeah.
thank you so much. Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
John, you want to step back in, John?
I do. I want to say thank you to you both, Cedric and Diana, for another wonderful conversation. And Loz, yeah, wow. Even connecting with what happens after death in less than 4 minutes. I mean, that is very, very
That's-
impressive. So
That's
thank
Cedric's
you for
fault.
that.
I didn't
That was
I didn't
great.
ask for that question.
It's been
Thank you,
lovely to
John.
be in the discussion and be in the exercise. So thank you so much, Loz. It's been really wonderful.
Thank you for hosting it.
Mm. Want to say thank you to everybody who's been with us too, here live, and who will join us on the podcast and the library and enjoy the conversation in the future.